for Penn State's offensive line, they showed struggles, and it's interesting because they did so well against Oregon. They did so well against SMU. For what it's worth, right? SMU actually is a really good front seven. That's an elite front seven that had a top 3 run defense in all of the country. You want to talk about ACC and maybe the level of competition, but SMU still had a vaunted run defense, and Penn State's offensive line did well. They did really well against Oregon in the Big Ten championship. That was my biggest concern, and now it becomes a concern again because they showed some weaknesses against Boise State. Now, I asked around, what's the issue here? Is it that Nick Dawkins and Drew Shelton and Sal Wormley and Vanga Ioane and Nolan Rucci's a part of this too, but actually Nolan Rucci's been playing very well. But who's at fault for the pressure on Drew Aller? It's a communication issue, I can tell you that much. Now, who needs to make these checks at the line of scrimmage? Because Notre Dame is going to run tons of blitzes, twists, and stunts, and they will come right up the middle with those linebackers. They will attack with those two linebackers right up the A-gap, and that is where Boise State got pressure. Boise State was getting pressure from a lot of different places, but primarily up the middle. And Drew Aller couldn't step up in the pocket. He couldn't shift around. So Boise State certainly figured something out that Notre Dame is going to look at on film and say, okay, well, we do that too, and we do it better. So that's something that Penn State's going to key in on. I am concerned about it, but I look at it this way. Penn State knows about this. It's not like, well, we had our struggles against Boise State, so now that's going to happen against Notre Dame to that extent. I don't think it's going to happen to the same extent. If things go wrong, then it could. But I don't think it's going to I don't think Drew Aller is going to be under as much duress. I think Andy Kotelnicki, Phil Troutwine, and everybody will just get the communication in order, because it's not that those front 5 can't block. They did it against Oregon. They did it against SMU. But they showed some weaknesses against Boise State that does have a solid pass rush. That was a team that had 50 sacks going into that game against Penn State for the Fiesta Bowl. Notre Dame is better. Yeah, so you definitely have to be at your best. So it is going to be up to primarily the interior of the offensive line. I've been impressed with Drew Shelton. I've been impressed with Nolan Rucci. But in pass protection, Notre Dame's pass defense and run defense are both top 10 objectively, and then overall top 5 because they force turnovers. They get after the quarterback, and fortunately for Penn State, they don't force a lot of turnovers, but 1 to 2 could be the difference. If Notre Dame does win you need to neutralize the turnover battle. Penn State doesn't even need to win the turnover battle. Penn State just needs to neutralize it. Have it be 0 to 0, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, whatever. Just trade that punch back and forth. Trade a fumble, trade an interception if you must. But if you are going to give up a turnover, if you have a giveaway, you need a takeaway to go back with it. And that's tough to do because Jeremiah Love does not fumble very often. Riley Leonard does not throw a lot of interceptions because he doesn't throw the ball a lot to begin with, but he does protect the football as a veteran quarterback. That's one matchup that I'm looking at. The other matchup that I'm looking at particularly is who's just going to be another option outside of Tyler Warren, Trey Wallace, and Amari Evans. Notre Dame is susceptible to not necessarily a random big play, but for more often than not, they gave up a few big pass plays to Georgia. Then if you watch that USC game, USC's offense was moving the football pretty consistently, but I do have to be honest, USC's wide receivers in that moment, a collection, and Kyron Hudson's joining Penn State, right? But all of those guys, the combination of Mekhi Levin and Zachariah Branch, they had 5 different options they could throw to, and Notre Dame didn't have an answer for that. Well, it's more about quantity in this case than quality when you go up against Notre Dame's defense, and that's my point, is that you have Tyler Warren, okay, well, they're going to be focused on him, which is Aiden Schuler and Xavier Watts in the back end of the defense. So can Trey Wallace can he win a one-on-one matchup? Probably, but does he win them more often than not? He's going to need to win more than just 50% of those battles. And that's easier said than done. Same thing with Amari Evans. But after that, I think Penn State really needs just another player to shine in the passing game. Is that Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen? Is it the running back position? Is it Liam Clifford? Is it Luke Reynolds, who was one of the only 4 players in the Fiesta Bowl to actually catch a pass? It just has to be somebody. Khalil Dinkins, Caden Saunders, if he comes back and he's healthy, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. He's dealing with what has been now a long-term injury here, or longer than we anticipated. Is it Tyzer Denmark? Just somebody, anybody after Tyler Warren, because he's going to draw double teams galore. And then you have Amari Evans and Trey Wallace, who are going to have to struggle to earn their reps, to earn their production in this game against Notre Dame. So is it Luke Reynolds? Is it Singleton out of the backfield? Is it Katron Allen out of the backfield? Because we really haven't seen them involved in the passing game, but they can catch. You can line Singleton up in the slot. Singleton's speed. You mean to tell me you can't get him a quick slant, a swing route into the flat, and just let him go? That's what I'm looking for Penn State's offense, that they need a balanced attack, and it's more than just running up the middle and throwing some strategic passes to Tyler Warren. You have to do things that you've really gone away from here over the course of this season. Singleton and Allen can be effective pass catchers. That's who I would put the responsibility on in this game, is their Notre Dame's linebackers, because they are so used. They are used effectively in the blitz that if they're rushing up the middle, Singleton doesn't need to stay in the block necessarily if you swing him out to the flat and then he's got an open field in front of him. I think that can work out a lot, and that can be something at least to have Notre Dame hesitate and be cautious with the blitzes. So those are the matchups that I'm really looking forward to here. Notre Dame's defensive backs against Penn State's wide receivers. Flip it over, Penn State's defensive backs versus Notre Dame's wide receivers. Tyler Warren against Aiden Schuler and Xavier Watts, because that's one of the best safety duos in the country. Zach Wheatley and Jalen Reed certainly have a case for it as well. Abdul Carter going up against Riley Leonard. I think you swarm Riley Leonard. To sum it all up, swarm Riley Leonard, because now Jeremiah Love is not as big of a factor. It's Riley Leonard. He is the main guy in this rushing attack. Force them to pass the football. Put 8 guys in the box. Put 9 guys in the box. I don't care. Dare Notre Dame to throw the football and then adjust based on the success. Let's go back to the comment section. I appreciate all of you joining the show. Thank you so much. This final pregame show here. We play best pressing the quarterback and the wide receivers, no zone. Do different things, right? You can't just run the same look every time. Now, granted, I agree that zone coverage has not been always successful, but you try to prevent the big play, and that's where, they're running zone in this case. Yeah, because their intents and purposes aren't to give up the big explosive play, so they drop guys back. They have them play cushion coverage. But yes, Penn State, but that's how you build a lead, is by pressing, putting more defenders in the box. And in this case, instead of Ashton Genty, replace Riley Leonard, you go after him. I think Penn State is winning this game more on the offense. The Lions offense must be able to move the ball and put up enough points to put pressure on Notre Dame's offense to answer. Yes, could not agree more. Now Penn State is in a big game that means something. Notre Dame could have sticks glued into the ground tomorrow. Franklin will lose the game. Okay, that's your opinion. I think Penn State wins 24-20. If Penn State can run the ball consistently, that wins the game. Don't lose the turnover battle, take away Riley Leonard. These are all tangible things. You don't need to develop this analytical game plan to figure out how do you stop Notre Dame. And all of the things that I'm saying are the inverse. How does Notre Dame win this game? Get Riley Leonard going. Can you see if you, I would say that try to get Mitchell Evans and Eli Raridan, the 2 tight ends, involved in the passing game a little more, maybe set up some play action. Those guys can catch, those guys can move, and they are big targets. So even though they won't create a lot of separation, they can box out. Hypothetically, they can box out a Jalen Reed and a Tony Rojas just because they are so much bigger than them in stature.